we have winners of the class vote on the best poster. Sorry that I rushed that. Remember that this is Team 4, our number 1 winner. They had 5 votes. No, they had 4 votes. And remember that what we were going for here, things that are included but should not, things that aren't included but should be, and then why not change. You can pause this and look at it a little bit more carefully. Number 2 with 3 is Team 5's. And you again can pause this. I want to summarize the lessons that we get from this lesson in the next couple slides. If you look carefully at the reports from Team 4 and Team 5, and indeed a lot of the reports, there's a few problems. One is that work that is being done and that contributes to human happiness, which is really what we're trying to go for, right? How well off are people? We'd like to measure that directly, but well, for reasons that we talk about here, it's a little bit tricky. Work done, but not counted. And what I'm not writing here is work done that actually contributes to human happiness. And the big one here is that when we do work at home, or especially when a partner in a relationship stays home out of the workforce to take care of the kids, to taxi kids around, to cook meals, to clean the house, to manage the budget, do all that. There's a study every year that's updated that measures the value of that stream of services. And it's, if you had to hire a taxi and hire a cook and hire a maid and hire a nanny, and the value of that stream of services is well over $200,000 a year. But anyway, when I I'm replumbing my house, well, if I had hired a plumber to do it, it would have been $5,000 added to GDP. But since I'm doing it myself, it's about $300 or $400 worth of parts, but then it's my labor, it's not counted. So this is a problem. These are really valuable things. These are things that are contributing to human well-being and happiness, but they're not counted. So there's a bunch of items on the list like that. And clearly we'd like to count them if we wanted to have a measure of all the things going on in the economy, within our geographical boundaries, whatever, that contribute to human happiness, and we don't. We miss those. And then they're huge, right? Then the other type of problem we have is that we with GDP per capita, taking GDP, the amount of the value of output made within a country's borders within a year's time, usually, or a quarter's time, or a month's time, whatever. GDP divided by population gives us GDP per person, and that's the measure we very often use. GDP per capita lacks quality measure. So if we're spending a ton of money on a healthcare system that doesn't do a very good job of keeping the population healthy, well, we'd like to control for that. We'd rather have an economy that we're spending money on healthcare and leading to really great human health outcomes, but we don't measure that, and we don't discount the money paid to doctors and hospitals, etc. that isn't useful for actual health. So the health is a big one. A lot of you pointed that out. Environmental quality. If I cut down a stand of trees off the hillside and everybody's now got to watch a muddy slope sliding down the mountain toward the city, there's no deduction from GDP for the loss of environmental quality. If I smog up my cities, we'd rather have clean, beautiful cities that also are associated with high levels of material well-being. So, we're not factoring in the standard measure environmental quality. The social good, I'm just going to call it harmony, even though it's not quite what I mean. Is the country at peace and get along with its neighbors, and can they avoid having to spend a lot of military expenditures to protect themselves. Similarly, a lot of you had prisons in the shouldn't count. Well, people are doing work to keep prisons going, and they're putting in a hard day's work. That's effort and value. We honor labor. But the fact is, if we had a system where people weren't committing as such crime and didn't require being imprisoned, et cetera, that'd be better. So both internal to borders and our situation with the world, that peace. And there's a lot of measures. I'll just finish with the education. Education quality. A lot of our measures of schooling is on seat time. What level of accomplishment did you achieve? And until, in my experience, it wasn't until grad school where things got really hard, and you were asked to leave if you weren't cutting it. There's a lot of education completion that doesn't necessarily correspond with high quality ways of thinking. So, such as those may be defined. We'd each have a different definition of that. But so we really don't measure things that we'd really like to measure. Well, why not change? There's a few reasons. One is, counting GDP. It's not super easy, but it's a whole lot easier than any of the alternatives or many of the alternatives. So it's relatively easy. We get dollar values paid out to people in their paychecks. Paychecks have to be reported to the government and for taxes. It's pretty easy to count. And the other thing is, it's not a useless measure. GDP per capita, GDP divided by population, is highly correlated with lots of good things. Low infant mortality rates, high calories per day, high average health. Again, there's a lot of country variation among rich countries that this measure doesn't capture, but when we're comparing, the United States with Mexico, these differences in GDP per capita really do capture a lot of the quality difference. I shouldn't say quality, but a lot of the difference in levels of living. So it's pretty convenient. The other thing is, I would be wrong and I would be misleading you if I didn't mention that there are a lot of alternative measures, and some of them are pretty useful, but they're somewhat problematic too. I want to mention, I'll put up some links. Bhutan is a country that has gone over to the gross national happiness measure, and they do a lot of surveys. In fact, by law, their policymakers have to focus on increasing gross national happiness. So this is really different than the gross national product, gross domestic product, GDP. There's the human development indicators that, I think the World Bank puts that out, but I might be wrong. Anyway, these measures are based on surveys, and they try to make qualitative assessments of a whole range of outcomes, health, education, et cetera. The problem is sometimes these measures can be really subjective. Sometimes they can be used as political tools. Anyway, we haven't decided as a global community to move to an alternative measure. The way as an educated citizen you use these measures is to realize that per capita income is one measure of material well-being, but it's not the end of the story. We care about income distribution. We care about the mix of products. We care about environmental quality. We care, there's a lot of other information that you need. And so this is one piece, but it's not the end of the story. We live in a complex world. None of these measures is able to give us more than a simplistic summary. And we live in a complicated world, and these summaries are only part of what we should care about or what we should know. And we need to educate ourselves to participate in a very complicated but really fascinating and important argument.